people obsessed over it after it made it into Us Weekly, and I loved it. I was very proud of it. Again, taking something that I was inspired from randomly, presenting it to my clients, and them trusting me to know that I will make the vision happen for them.
Welcome to The Wedding Biz with Andy Kushner, the show about the global wedding business and your backstage pass to the happily ever after world of professional dream makers.
I gave you my heart on a silver platter, 'cause you made my dreams come true. It won't crack, baby, it'll never...
This is Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz. If there is someone who you would like to suggest be on the show who has not yet appeared, please feel free to direct message us on Instagram at Wedding Biz Show. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram as well. And again, that is Wedding Biz Show. Well, today's guest is Troy Williams of Simply Troy Lifestyle and Events. I first met Troy at the Engage Luxury Wedding Summit in Cancun at Nizuc, and later interviewed him at his home in Los Angeles. I learned that Troy was the first one in his family to go to college, and beginning around that time, his mantra became, go for it. Troy was incredibly ambitious, resourceful, and tenacious, looking to make a career in Hollywood, and was open to learning at every turn. You'll hear Troy talk about how he became an intern at Warner Brothers, and how eventually that led to be involved in the production of around 450 movie premieres. He tells great stories, not only about how he networked to get that position, but all the other network he has done that has taken him so far and is making a name for himself. You'll also hear how, as he says, every overnight success takes 10 years. It has now been, at the time of this recording, around 4.5 years since Troy struck out completely on his own, and he has not yet had to do any marketing. It's really incredible. You'll also get to hear how Troy handles challenges and a no response, and how he just simply keeps running with it, as well as how he handles mistakes. Essentially, Troy shares his journey and his creative process, and it is a powerful story. So enjoy my conversation with Troy Williams. Well, Troy, it's so good to see you here. You know, we met at the Engage Luxury Wedding Summit at Nizuc in Cancun.
We sure did.
Yeah, yet another wonderful conference by Rebecca and Catherine.
Love them.
And so,
hashtag because of Engage.
right. And it was Sean Lowe who said, you must meet Troy.
Wonderful, Sean.
And then, of course, with Melissa Hagen's help. So anyway, Troy, you are an event lifestyle designer creating personalized event and branding experiences for celebrities, corporate, social, and charity events. From what I understand, you spent a 14-year tenure as a senior publicist for premieres and special events at Warner Brothers Pictures.
I sure did.
I definitely we're going to talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Best training ground ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to know. And there, from what I understand, you were involved in the planning and implementation of something like almost 500 special events nationwide, including the Academy Awards and Golden Globe parties. You've hosted on-air lifestyle segments, done speaking engagements. I know you're speaking this next June at Engage in Banff at the Fairmont. And you've added an online entrepreneurial and leadership book club and multiple lifestyle design projects into your brand. Some of the celebrity clients include Eva Longoria, Fergie and Josh, Seth MacFarlane, Carol Burnett.
Julianne Hough last year, her big wedding and people and all. That was a beautiful wedding, which I loved so much.
Am I allowed to see pictures?
Yes, they were all in People magazine, so they're all over.
There we go.
You'll see them all over and online. There's a lot of beautiful stuff.
Well, and in the website, there's these show notes where we're going to put some of your favorite pics and stuff like that,
Wonderful.
So people will be able to see links and things like that.
Wonderful, yeah.
So I'm curious, Troy, when did this hit you? I mean, I know, again, you spent 14 years for Warner Brothers, but even going further back in time, do you remember when you first kind of had that inspiration, that spark in terms of what led you to this field of design?
What I've always, back then, growing up, we didn't really know this field. This field has, I think, evolved into event design, event planning. And so growing up, no, I did not know that. But I did always have a design aesthetic or how I liked things organized or planned. My mother and my grandmother both have a great sense of style, perfectionism, and that got passed down to me. So it was just kind of an innate second nature for me.
Well, how did it start to manifest? Like when you were growing up at home?
I always knew I was the first one in my family to go to college. So I've always worked very hard for anything I've ever needed to. I came from a family with not a lot of money, but a lot of love. And so they've always encouraged me to go for it. And that's the only way I've ever known is just to go for it. Like make the cold calls, do things, make it happen for myself. It was never going to be handed to me. So I went to college.
Where?
University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, that's fun. You know, when I was in first grade, I was there. My father was going to grad school anthropology.
Yes.
Now this is back, in the 60s.
Yes.
So it was even more what Tucson is, right?
Hello, way back.
Yeah, but Troy, I remember the mountains, and that set me off for the rest of my life. Just in the horizon, seeing mountains. We'd go to Sabino Canyon and all of that.
Oh my gosh, you're totally speaking. Yes.
Yeah.
I always say Arizona has the best sunsets in the world. Like you always, when the sky just is the pinks and purples and blues
and the cactus and
everything. It's really beautiful. It's a different lifestyle. So
yeah, very different. What did you major in when you were there?
I was in media arts with a split minor in marketing and communications. That's what I went into. I originally went in after I got accepted and I put myself through school with work study programs, scholarships, financial aid, working at the admissions office all 4 years, all of that. I thought I was going to be an international corporate lawyer because that would be, you would like, oh, that'll take me above my station in life. I'll make money. I'll do everything, but it didn't make me happy. And so I learned that very quickly the first semester, what made me happy. And from the time I turned 16, I worked at a movie theater, GCC Belltown Center Cinemas 8. In Phoenix, Arizona. It was my job, which is great when you live in Phoenix in 115-degree summers because you get to be inside in the cold, get free movies, work with friends, and you're in air conditioning. Yeah. But I did that. So I always had a love for entertainment. And so I knew I wanted to work in it. And so I worked very hard. I switched over in college to media arts. Okay. And I told my parents, I'm going to go try and make it in Hollywood and the entertainment industry.
What did they say to that?
They were like, but you don't know anybody there. And I was like, well, watch me. Let me figure this out. Yeah. And there happened to be a Warner Brothers internship program. They had 35 interns around the country. I saw that there was a spot open. I went for it. I got it. And so for those several years in college, I was the Warner Brother intern where they would send us screenings and I would market it out to the campuses and my friends got free movies and, you would have different promotional items. So you would get, sweatshirts out to people and different movies like, that was way back in the day. So I'm trying to remember some of the movies back then, like Major League and things like that.
But your job was like to deal with the demographic of college kids.
The college kids, organize the screening, get the marketing, the advertising in the school newspaper.
That's a lot for an intern.
It's exciting. And it was paid. So I made like $250 a month, which, as a college kid, who's putting himself through school, that's a nice bonus. Yeah. So I did all that. And then that was before nowadays we have all the massive internet. Yeah. Being able to Google this and Google that. Yes. Back then it was not. It was, I went to the library and
I remember those days.
The one issue of Variety magazine that would come over from LA and was on the newsstand. They would have it there and I would read it and try and learn people's names and stuff. And I would make cold calls. I would fax. I would call LA. And my spring break before I graduated, I did an entire week of informational interviews with some of the biggest people in.
But when you say cold call, what kind of people were you going after? I mean, producers, film directors, the biggest names?
I would pick up a phone and I would call their offices.
I would
talk to the assistants.
I would talk to people.
I got a lot of informational interviews. Yeah. I got a lot of things. And when I graduated from University of Arizona, moved out 2 weeks later, one of my best girlfriends in college, her father was a dentist in LA. Yeah. He ended up hooking me up with interviews that I thought I wanted to be an agent. They got me into their interview pool, but set me up with a temp agency. And so I started temping in Hollywood at all these great places. So Sony Studios, Sharon Stone's production company for a couple of days. Like there was all these different things that I got to do. Yeah. And
what were some of the things you really enjoyed?
My big thing was I was 9 months. I got in 9 months on the Sony lot. So that started it. And when I was on the Sony lot doing like data processing, inputting, not glamorous by any means, but it got me on the lot. Sure. And by getting on the lot, I was able to fax things. I could go meet people or producers and stuff.
And you're starting to learn the jargon and all of that stuff.
I learned what it was, how it was moving and TV shows and films. And I was always very persistent with the different things. I got my job on Jerry Maguire. I got to be a PA on that and come back to Arizona because I would just cold call. And they're like, we like your energy. You're up. We have like a 7-day shoot in Arizona. I'm like, great. I'll go stay with my parents. And I did night shoots and everything with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Tom Cruise in the locker rooms and everything. Cuba went on to win the Oscar that year for Best Supporting Actor. So it was a great experience. But these were all things that I made happen for myself because I was not afraid to pick up a phone and call somebody.
No, I think that's incredible. But it sounds like you didn't really have a definite goal in mind, right? Did you know what you wanted to do?
I thought I wanted to be an agent. I thought I wanted
that's what you said.
I thought I wanted to be an agent. I thought that was the way, again, sort of how I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought being an agent would get me into the industry to build the career and the success that I thought. And so I got into that, and I was working hard at the temp agencies. I had been cold calling Joel Schumacher, who is a famous director. And
Did you ever get him directly?
I was speaking to his assistant, Bettina Rose. I remember Bettina's name. And I was faxing stuff there and I kept following up. And by random chance, I loved John Grisham growing up. And A Time to Kill, I wasn't technically in the industry yet, so I got into a preview screening in Pasadena of A Time to Kill. When that movie, I was so excited to see it, and I came out into the lobby, and Joel Schumacher had just come out of the bathroom into the lobby. No one was there. I knew who he was, what he looked like, and I went up and I introduced myself.
That's great.
I said, "Hi, my name is Troy Williams. I've been faxing with your office, Bettina Rose, blah, blah, blah." And the very next week, he got me in, and I had a production assistant job in the miniatures warehouse for 10 months on Batman and Robin.
Oh, come on.
No joke. And that was because I put myself out there. And I took the chance, and I just was polite and, introduced myself. But when I had moved to LA too, I've always had a connection with the Batman franchise, because 2 weeks after, not even 2 weeks, I think it was a week after I had moved to LA, we walked up to Westwood, and the Batman Forever premiere was happening in Westwood. Thousands of people in the streets.
Oh, yeah. It was crazy.
Val Kilmer was Batman. Nicole Kidman, you saw all the big... Jim Carrey was the Riddler. And I mean, the streets were just tons of people. And it was amazing. It was like, welcome to Hollywood. Here we go.
Jeez.
And exactly 10 years later, to the week, I was throwing the premiere for Batman Begins.
Come on.
I'm not even joking.
Isn't that wild how it comes full circle?
It came 100% full circle.
So what were your responsibilities for that when you say you were throwing it?
So fast forward after I was making all that stuff happen. And after Batman finished, I was at a cast and crew screening there. Again, one of my buddies who was an electrician on Batman and Robin. His wife was a producer with Steven Spielberg his the Shoah Foundation. And I had heard that they had just seen Rent on Broadway, the original cast. And I was like obsessed. I'd never been to New York at that point. And so I just ran up to her and I was just like, "So nice to meet you, June. Damon's friend, blah, blah, blah. I hear you went to Rent. Let's talk." And it wasn't like, I wasn't hitting her up for a job by any means. I just wanted to talk about Rent. We hit it off, and she ended up loving me and offered me a job as an assistant production coordinator on The Last Days, which I worked on that for the Shoah Foundation. That won the Oscar for Best Documentary that year. It was an amazing thing. Then I was on the Universal lot. So that was fantastic. So I did that, and then still working, trying to, get the big job. And I would work full time at Banana Republic in Beverly Hills, and also work other jobs, sometimes at a talent agency.
Just to make ends meet.
So 7 days a week I would work, but I made more entertainment connections at Banana Republic.
Oh, come on. Really? People just coming into the store?
I dressed everybody. Like, there was a lot of
Really? Can you name a couple?
Everyone from Ryan Seacrest to the entire heads of the William Morris agency now, to big agents who...
That's great.
The people who were always nice and always treated you with respect. And they remembered me later when I was the person who was working on premieres at Warner Brothers. I always remember that. Be kind to people. That's what I always tell people. Be kind. You never know. You meet the same people going up as you do coming down.
Listen, you could write a networking book. I mean,
it's been amazing. And that working at that Banana Republic job, one of my college buddies' cousin's ex-girlfriend paged me. They got me an interview for the International President's second assistant job that had popped open at Warner Brothers in the marketing department. I went in, interviewed. They really liked me, but I didn't get the job. It just wasn't going to work out. But 3 months later, they remembered me. And when the president of domestic marketing of all of worldwide Warner Brothers needed a second assistant, that office referred me for the second assistant.
That is a really good lesson to people. This has happened in my life too, is obviously don't burn a bridge, obviously, but also you just don't know. And I have a little quick story. So I got invited to go to the Grammys in a few days.
Oh, yeah, exciting.
At the time of this recording, it's coming up. And that was from someone I had met, I think at special events. You know, I was getting an award in music and this guy was getting an award, and he ended up, this is like 12 years later, I stayed in touch every few years, just touch base. Now he's at the very top, you know, overseas production but anyway, it's just another story of how this can continue and pay off later in a sense.
Hilarious. When I was in that second assistant position, the first assistant who had been there, random chance, she had worked on China Beach with June, the producer on Steven Spielberg's documentaries. Yeah. When she heard, she called her for the reference and she was like raved about it. Yeah. And I got the permanent job at Warner Brothers and started my 14-year career.
So what were your responsibilities though in the beginning?
Amazing. It was the most amazing education because being in the president's office, I got to know all the departments of the marketing world. And Warner Brothers is one of the top marketing teams in the world. I got to be there. Yeah. Everyone reported to my boss, who was the president then, Brad Ball. And I met all your top executives, all your top players, the heads of all the studio, the top filmmakers, how it works, how those meetings were done, how design presentations were put together, the brilliant minds that worked and how they worked as a team. Yeah. And I got to do that for 15 months. So I really got to learn everybody. Okay. It was a great introduction into the high profile, the top of the top. Yeah. We were the number one studio. We put out more movies than anybody else in the business. And so 15 months into that, a position opened up as a junior publicist in the events department. And it was at that time, one person, her name was Courtney Saylor at the time, now married Courtney Rogue, and she's still there. And we wound up, the two of us, working together for 14 years. She was my...
so you were doing publicity, you're saying? You were a publicist?
Well, premieres and special events. Yeah. So, but
I'm not surprised,
They would call me a publicist because of how it worked with the union and stuff like that. But I have a very good eye to public relations and marketing. So that makes me very different than a lot of event designers. And I have a much different background, which plays very nicely with brand partnerships and how I know how to work at a corporate level and a celebrity level.
Well, let's do that right now. So how does that relate, and how were you able to? What can you be more specific?
How working at Warner Brothers was phenomenal. As I said, it was the best education, hands-on. We worked around the clock, but we had a blast working with one another. So you don't mind working crazy hours. Yeah. But we had an amazing experience getting to see and be a part of all these different campaigns, and how premieres and special events were definitely a culmination of all the hard work for the campaigns. And people always never realized that a premiere party was not just a party. It was always a marketing tool. Sure. It was always a means of public relations and how you're getting extra publicity out there, how you're, supporting the brand of that. If you have a brand partnership who's supporting that premiere, you're working with the different corporate businesses from around the country who have spent a lot of money to be a part of that. And you want to keep them happy, right? As opposed to making sure that you had your main, Warner Brothers. You always had to make sure their interests were kept at the high level, that there's a brand there, that you keep the, it respectable and everything, which I love. Very much is part of my work now with Simply Troy Lifestyle and Events. And I honor that. And I have very much, there's a class and an elegance to everything that we learned and did there, which continues now into the work I do on my own with my own business.
But how did the aspect of planning and design come into play along the way?
Well, we were a part of all that. We did everything from celebrity recruitment, dealing with all the publicists in town. We dealt with the design and the look of the parties, how it related to the movies. You would see the movie and then we would be like, great, we're going to brainstorm this. How would we tie this in? We did all the Ocean's, 11, 12, 13 movies, every single Harry Potter movie for the entire decade.
Oh, geez.
The Batman, Dark Knight, all of those movies. We did, 450 movies. There was movies I don't even remember we did that I'm like, oh, wait, we did that premiere. Matrix, man, we were the very first ones to get to do a premiere at the Walt Disney Concert Hall in downtown LA.
Yeah.
We were the very first ones to get to do, back then, it was the Nokia Center. It's now Microsoft Theater across from Staples Center when we did Speed Racer. So, we've done Boston, Fenway Park, and done a premiere there with the town. We have gotten to do some amazing, incredible things, which was great. All part of the Warner Brothers premiere team.
Can you tell me, Troy, maybe one of your favorite stories and how you were involved in it? And, as far as, again, as design and planning goes, can you tell me some details of one?
Well, everything was about design. Everything was our ideas, how we would create things, how we would come up with ideas. Because we were doing probably, I think, about 30 premieres a year. Yeah. And we didn't do just the premieres. We would also do the Academy Award parties when we got nominations. Oscar nominations were yesterday. So I know my friends there are working on, the Warner Oscar party. But we would do the Warner Brother InStyle Golden Globe party every year. So that was fantastic. Always one of the number one parties.
But is there one in particular that really just stands out for you? And to give the specifics of it?
Oh, geez.
I mean, I'm sure there's a ton, but if you could pick one.
I mean, there was different emotional moments for me that, Batman Begins and the 10 years exactly on the week. That always hits me because I was like, I was a face in the crowd looking at something.
Isn't that crazy?
With a dream.
Yeah.
And then to know that I was in Hollywood at Grauman's Chinese 10 years later. And everyone always says every overnight success takes 10 years.
Yeah, I know.
And
sure.
That couldn't have been, I mean, I get goosebumps talking about it now because it proved its point that I was like, oh yeah, I, was somebody who nobody knew who I was. And then I got to be, the number two, working with the team, doing that with them. But for the designs of that, we would always, I'm trying to think. When we did Dark Knight in New York, I really loved that. There was a great propaganda TV wall that I loved that we had come up with a design on that we worked on. That was really great. But there's so many different things. We all came up with different ideas that were very fun to get to see implemented. When we did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and the Willy Wonka explosion of candy and everything was,
imagine.
I mean, that was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Getting to dress up in the costumes.
Oh, you did? Did you do that?
Oh, yeah, we would definitely. I started getting people to really have fun with it and really help bring people in an immersive way. And luckily, I happened to be the size of a lot of the actors in their costumes. So I got to wear some great ones, like one of the Ghost twins from Matrix Revolutions. I got to wear his outfit. And Lucius Malfoy, they literally glued the wig onto my head and his costume and his robes. That was really phenomenal. It was really fun. Just all different. And people had fun with it. And, the executives and talent and people loved feeling how much passion and excitement we had for their movie. Yeah. Because they've worked many, many years before we even got our hands on it. People think movies happen right out the door. Many years. It could take 7 years, 10 years. Yeah. It doesn't just happen like, okay, great, I got a movie. Great, let's make it in 2 weeks. That's not really how the business works. But designing it always was, we would go from so many different things, which I love. We could be doing a kids movie one day, a high class Oscar drama the next. We could be doing a crazy action film one day. You could be doing always juggling different aspects of that job. So it kept me never getting bored, which is why I love what my career has always been. That now, since I left in my business, I've always been a 4-quadrant event designer. And so I do celebrity, charity, corporate, social. That is what I get to do, which I love. It's not just weddings. I don't do just weddings. Yeah, I get to do all four, and I get to do them pretty equally, which is brilliant.
Well, let's talk about, in terms of getting to that and transitioning to leave such an incredible position after so many years with all the people there, and to take that leap, right? And start your own business. Can you tell me about that?
Take that leap when you have a brand new 6-month-old foster adopted child.
Oh, that's when you did it?
Leaving a 6-figure job to go take a risk on your own self because you believe in yourself. Yes.
But tell me how it went. So while you're at Warner Brothers, had you already been thinking for some period of time?
I had been, because you just get to a point. It's great. You're working with the top of the top, but what else is next? Yeah. And when you're a person like me who I love to design, I've always loved it. as I cultivated that through Warner Brothers, I knew that I liked having the say-so of, let's put this together. You know, I have the tasteful vision of how to put together an event. And so I had been thinking about it for a little while. And when Finn came around, my son, Finley Pip, it was the first time I took a paternity leave and stopped working for 3 months. That was the first time since I was 16.
How did you do that?
And it was a whole different thing. But I knew for me that he wouldn't know it then, but the most important lesson for me was never to let whatever career you have in your life, never let the golden handcuffs keep you stuck to a job if it's not what you're feeling passionate about or meaningful anymore. And I knew I needed to still kind of do what I was doing, but do it on my own. And I knew I wanted to work more with events and lifestyle and building my own brand. I saw it. I saw the best of the best. I saw how that worked. And I wanted something of my own to show my child, like, this is what your dad created. And so I came back from paternity leave, did a few more premieres, and I set everything in motion and I left, and I loved my family, my Warner Brothers. I'm still 4.5 years later. I'm still close with all those people. I love them. But I knew that it was time to go.
Yeah. So, I mean, were you scared? I mean,
of course. I was like, you're going from 14 years of a very structured life.
Yeah.
You know, where you have to be. It's corporate. Yeah. Yes, it's still corporate. It's a business. It's entertainment. It's show business.
And I imagine you're getting salary checks, right?
Oh, yes. Fantastic. And then I just said,
commission.
I know. And I just said goodbye to that.
But was it sudden, or did you already, get some clients on the side?
No, I always knew, and I tell people this, I'm like, you don't just quit something on a whim. I mean, that's not me.
Yeah.
And so for 3 years before that, I always knew someday I wouldn't be there for the rest of my life.
Right.
But I also knew I needed my own portfolio, my own stuff. So I made sure that I went to them and did a non-complete clause, make sure everything was fine. And I was approved to do things that were not premiere related.
Yeah.
So the very first thing that I got to do was for Seth MacFarlane. I did a supper party for him 3 years before that. And then I did a Napa wedding. I did a few celebrity baby showers, and I would do things on my own time. Like I would get to plan those or do those on my time off the clock from there. So as long as it wasn't a premiere. And so I did it on my own. But I had those photos and they were mine.
I was going to say, you have in a sense a portfolio.
Yeah, but for 14 years, Warner Brothers was all my family there. But I was a part of a team, but I wasn't about to leave and try and market all that as just simply Troy. That's not, it's not truthful.
Sure.
And I'm very much about being truthful. So,
but at the same time, when you leave, I imagine there was a dip in income, obviously, right? And to some degree.
Yeah, to some degree.
It wasn't that much. You had enough going.
I left Warner Brothers, on one day, and by 7 a.m. the next morning, I already had people calling me. Here's the deal. It's been 4.5 years later. I have never had to market. I have done nothing but referrals ever since.
Wow, only 4.5 years?
4.5 years.
Man.
Yeah, so I kind of shot out like a rocket. So 2 weeks after I left, I got Fergie and Josh's baby shower. I did Twitch, Stephen Twitch Boss from the Ellen Show, and Allison Holker. They were on So You Think You Can Dance.
Yeah.
I got their wedding, and things just kept snowballing from there. I got the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation charity event. Usually there were people who were looking for a refresh, a new vision, and someone would refer me. I would go in. They liked me. They hired me, and boom, I would go away.
I want to ask, I mean, I know, your work is incredible. I know you're humble, but I still would love to know, how do you think it happened that you had such a quick, successful transition where like 7 o'clock the next day, the next couple of months, you're getting these calls and referrals?
I worked very hard.
Is it again publicizing yourself? Is that what it's about?
100%. So, here's the deal. I've always been a kind, hard worker.
Yeah.
Tough. Don't ever mistake my kindness for weakness, because it's not.
Well, we got to be.
But for 14 years, I handled everyone in town very nicely and tried to be respectful. Not everyone was going to get into things, but you handle it and treat people respectfully. And people knew that I was the real deal.
Know then when the time came.
I told everyone knew I was leaving. They had to.
But obviously you were telling what you were going to do and spread the word. And
completely. I work in PR. I know exactly how to publicize. I know how to market it. And I always knew when I left. I learned from the best. You have an amazing website, an amazing business card. I have both. And when I left, it showed that, I was the real deal, because how it came to be, for 14 years, I was known as Troy Williams from Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And now it was time to be known as Simply Troy. And so that is how Simply Troy Lifestyle and Events became the name, was from that. And it's Warner Brothers is always a part of who I am. Always, it's a part of my education, how I know how to handle things. I stay calm so much more than a lot of people because I've dealt with the highest high pressure situations. And if you don't know how to handle yourself in a crazy situation and handle it calm and collected, how is anyone else ever going to respect you or know that you're in charge?
Well, and right. And it's also, especially, I feel it's your team, and you got to set the example for the team.
Always.
The client needs to see it. But was that something that you had to work on and kind of like almost like a muscle you had to develop to be able to do it? Or have you always kind of been
I've always had that from my parents.
In the face of pressure,
I've always had it from my family. You definitely learn. Trust me, we all lose our cool here and there.
But you keep it inside.
Yes, and you complain about things with your team outside of that atmosphere.
And at another time,
and we've had crazy situations happen.
Like, can you tell me one really crazy one that you had to suddenly popped up and how you dealt with it?
Oh, we all had to stay very calm and collective after 9/11. We had 9/11, and soon after that, we threw Ocean's 11. We had every single big, movie star in the world in that movie. All going to be in one place at one time.
Okay.
We had the FBI have to come in and make sure things were, safe and sound. We were in the world's eye. So keeping our cool, that's all we could do. We had to know what we were doing. We had to stay cool and, how everyone was going, where things were functioning. Logistics and production and design is it's clockwork. That's how I've always thought. It's, stay organized. Your job always as an event designer, or at least for me, I say I'm an event designer. I design. I know how to plan. I know logistics and how things should be organized and thinking several steps ahead. You should be completely planned up into your day of an event and then know that stuff is going to go wrong. It is just how it is. It doesn't matter how brilliant you are. It will always go wrong. That's your job, to know everything is moving up to what you've planned. And now your job that day is to put out the fires, how to solve a problem, how to stay calm and collected.
I think that's one of the differentiators, is how we handle that, how someone handles that, right?
Let me preface that, how an event professional handles it, because there are a lot of people who I have now witnessed this after 4.5 years. I came from the cream of the crop for 14 years, then going from corporate into a transition into a small business owner and learning that. There's a lot I've been learning, still learning, but I have a great background. There's stuff I don't know that I'm learning, but I know how to be a professional and how I represent myself in this industry. And sometimes I take that for granted because I see people who think they want to be a party planner because they throw parties, or it's really fun, or maybe because they threw a kegger for their fraternity or sorority that they're now a party planner. That's not what I am. And a lot of the people I respect in this industry, that is not what we are. We are event professionals and how we handle ourselves. And it is a true career. That is a lot of hard work that people now realize that it's also smart business. We aren't just throwing pretty parties. We throw an experience, and how you work with that in branding and in these events can help your business. It can help many months from now. You're helping people remember that great time they had and how that brand was related to that.
Can you give me a specific example of how of a story where you've done this and how you did that to, again, with the branding and all of that? Specifics of how you made that happen.
Just how brands are represented. I will say this: when a brand is any brand, I won't name specifics, but when a brand comes into an event, whether it's a premiere or if you're just doing, something, a lot of times you have to control. I always say, don't make it look like the brand vomited all over the place. That does not make people feel welcomed in an event space. When you handle stuff organically and incorporate it authentically into an event in moments, it's really fantastic.
Can you tell me?
Sure. Like just doing the Carol Burnett event. Okay. So working with Miss Burnett for the 50th anniversary of the Carol Burnett show. Yeah. I was brought on by Walmart, and Walmart was doing something out of the box, showing that they are working with, an elegant, high level event. And to do that, I used their logo very specifically with their yellow spark, which was their brand. But I did it in smart ways, from the cocktail napkins to floating sugar papers in the cocktails. The gifts, everyone got the complete 50th anniversary box set when they left. So I had custom
Like the way it was presented, you're saying?
Yes, I had custom wrapping paper created with the yellow spark that looked like it. Again, it felt authentic to them.
But not in people's faces,
Not in people's face, but people were like, that is so classy. I had custom beautiful robes. All the waiters looked very elegant that night, and they had beautiful black Hedley and Bennett robes done. And I had the simple yellow spark, embroidered and very embroidered, and everyone loved it. It caught their attention here, there. You have your Carol Burnett
an
logos,
emotion, right? Which is what they wanted, because the people don't think necessarily of Walmart at that high-end luxury end, and I can see
they did after that event.
Yeah, I get
and that's the key, and that's what I know. That's an experience I have with branding, that I can come in a different way and see things. It's not just throw it up everywhere. It's like, bring it back a little bit. I worked with Oreo with the IMDb Oscar party for their first time last year, and working with that in we're doing a high-end Oscar viewing party and working with that. But you do it, again, in specific little ways and nods that we had this amazing chocolate genius come in from across on the East Coast. He flew into LA, and during the course of that viewing party, he constructed a giant art piece out of chocolate.
No. I'm hungry right now, so I'm starting to salivate.
No, it was like rotating. People could smell the chocolate. They could see it. But again, it was something that felt really cool and organic. People, it make for a good social media moment. It was very cool branding. It worked with them, incorporated into an elegant high-end party. We had Oreo liquid nitrogen milkshakes that were a fun alcohol thing that people tray passed around. I pulled the shade of blue from the Oreo branding into the vests of the waiters that night. Neat. So when they pass things around, again, subtle touches that didn't, overwhelm the main brand, which was IMDb. So you had to compliment them also. So it's always about marrying the two, making sure they're both happy. Again, how you stay calm and collective when you're trying to make one big corporate entity happy, and the other people, they're all paying money. Yeah. They're all a part, playing in the same sandbox. And that is your job, my job, to make sure things are done elegantly, tastefully, authentically, respecting the brand. And I do it really well.
So how do you approach weddings?
Weddings, I'm incredibly personalized. Here's the deal. I'm not in this to throw 20 million weddings, all, blush and bashful and looking the same. That's not my thing. It's never going to be my thing. I am highly personalized when it comes to my clients. My clients, of course, have been Eva Longoria, Julianne Hough.
They've seen the greatest parties on the planet. It's like, how do you
do that? Yeah. You get to know them just through conversations, where they're coming from, who they are, who's their essence, what do they love? And I always feel like for weddings, it is any couple, and it doesn't have to be a high-end celebrity. I can take anybody and learn their story. And through the course of talking, and just like we are now.
Yeah, so you're just hanging out. The first thing, is that the first thing you just hang out with the couple?
We do. We're talking. We get, I get inspired, and let's run with it. What makes it special to you guys? I always say the couples I've always worked with are couples who it's about them. I'm not real. I will probably never take on a client when the entire wedding's being planned by a mother or somebody else. That's not. I like to represent the couple on that day and producer, make it feel like them.
Yeah,
and that's true. That's very much an Academy Award nominated producer, Brian Oliver. I did his and his wife Amira's wedding a couple years ago, and he was putting together Hacksaw Ridge, which went on to many Oscar nominations. But during that time frame of his wedding, they were incredibly busy. And I did not, it's the only time this will happen in my career where I really didn't get to see the couple the week of the wedding.
Oh, really?
And then they showed up at the rehearsal. But he said that. He's like, Troy, I completely trust you in your taste, what you do, how you do it, and that you got us. You are like a movie producer. And he's got a couple Oscar nominations to attest to what that job is. And I said that, yes, I know how the logistics, how this works, how your vision, I see it in my head. And that's one of my favorite things on event days is when everybody else gets to see what I've known for. Well, sometimes it could be a year, it could be 2 years.
Can you tell me more about your process with a wedding? So again, I understand you get together. You're just.
Let me give you an example. Speaking of the wedding, I did Ross and Thurber, he and his wife Sarah's wedding. We met, and We're the Millers. He did that. Some of these big fun comedies and things like that. Talking with them and meeting them that first time, we went through a good 2 hours just hanging about what if we did this, XYZ. And it wasn't until maybe the last 5 minutes that they're like, oh, let's show you where we got engaged. I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, let's hear it. And so there's here at LACMA in Los Angeles, there's a great art installation called Urban Lights. It's beautiful. It's world famous. It's everywhere. It's all the different street lamps. That's the art installation people take the pictures of all the time. It's rows and rows and rows of old school street lamps.
Oh, yeah.
He had surprised her, proposed to her there, had a photographer shoot them from afar, black and whites. It was really beautiful. Ooh. And when we found out where we were going to be, that's when I saw that. I was like, that's it. And they're like, what? And I was like, that's what we need to run with. We need to recreate that. And we did. We recreated the street lamps inside Viviana in downtown LA on New Year's Eve and gave all their people the most amazing experience. To this day, one of my favorite wedding parties was them all around that in their black tuxes, in their ties, and all their bridal party. Everyone, it was like the most amazing Vanity Fair. It looked like a Vanity Fair Hollywood cover of all the street lamps up there on their wedding day. It was phenomenal, but it came from that casual conversation, laying on a sofa with them, like hanging out with the dogs bopping around us, and them casually mentioning, oh, you should see our engagement picture. And it, boom.
That must be the greatest feeling, Troy, when the spark happens. And now you know what the whole thing's going to be.
Completely. I can do that I just did Rosalind Sanchez and Eric Winter's second baby shower. And I know she's from Puerto Rico and he grew up in California. And I knew we needed they were having a baby boy. I'd done their daughter's 6 years before that, their baby shower. And I knew we needed something different. And randomly on Instagram, a lifestyle photographer friend of mine had shot an interior designer's campaign for these stunning surfboards. They're interior designer like surfboards. And the spark hit. And I was just like, what if we did a surfboard theme for your little, the baby boys thing? They loved it because it represented, but something different.
Yeah.
And I was able to get these stunning surfboards that created the backdrop for the photo, black and white. We did black and white and people are like, what, for a baby shower? I'm like, watch, we were in this beautiful setting. This house was gray and white and green grass. So the black and white popped gorgeously. And we did black and white and marbleized and the surfboards. We had a create your own surfboard activity where all the guests created their surfboards and then they could put those in shadow boxes for the baby for the nursery later on. We had a surfboard shaped cake, surfboard shaped signage for the food stations. Really just ran with it and people loved it. All the women looked stunning, all in white or beautiful black. Everyone always feels great in those two colors. And sometimes people don't think it's a traditional thing for a baby shower. People obsessed over it after it made it into Us Weekly. And I loved it. I was very proud of it. Again, taking something that I was inspired from, randomly presenting it to my clients and them trusting me to know that I will make the vision happen.
That's great.
Them.
What about the business aspect of all this? Obviously, it's obvious talking to you that you have a great business sense, but in terms of literally setting up a structure for your business in order to execute, implement, keep this running, right? It's not just the creative side. It's not just the marketing side.
No, it's very funny. My husband is an editor. And when I left Warner Brothers, that was, I think, even still, 4.5 years later, I'm still learning that. And I think as small business owners, going from a corporate life into the small business life,
I know what that's
finding what my structure is.
Yeah.
And for the first 6 months, maybe the year, my husband was like, oh my gosh, please find some structure. Because I didn't know. You have here's my job. I'm 9 to 7 at Warner's or, you're doing stuff. And this is a premiere night. You knew the structure. You knew where you were going to be Monday through Friday or Monday
Were you
through
just
Saturday.
Frazzled and spread thin and all of that?
And then, when you came up on your own, it was, you're trying to figure out, I can do this during the day or I can switch around how I do stuff. But trying to shut it off, I'm still learning that. I'm still trying to. That's where it blends. Nowadays, our world has definitely changed even in the 4.5 years since I've left. Nowadays, people can run multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar companies from a laptop and a cell phone. Yep. That is your office. There's why we work in the co-working spaces and all these huge things around the country. Co-working spaces are so big right now with companies because people like that flexibility of trying to balance a home life, trying to still work in a non-traditional sense, because it's not all about FaceTime anymore. People can sometimes be way more productive working from home focused. They know what they got to do, and they're not, hanging out at the water cooler at the office. Yeah, sure. You're there. Your face is there, but you're moving. You're talking to 12 people. Blah blah blah. You're like, but again, it's a muscle that you need to learn to use, which I'm still learning.
Well, do you have employees? Like, how is your setup?
I do. My setup's great because I don't have to have that huge overhead. I have freelance event producers who come on for different jobs. And then
so they're all contractors then?
Yeah, they're all freelance. Okay. They're freelance. And then I have the bigger team comes in. So like 6 or 7 people come in for this big event. Or, we had 7 people that flew up for Julianne's wedding up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It all just depends. I can fluctuate that down to, I just did a celebration of life for a family in Newport Beach, and I just needed 2 people, and they came and, but I have the rotating, it's sort of like a troupe of players, which is great. They meet my level of expectations and how they present themselves, how they handle situations. They're great workers, and they're great employees, and they're kind people. And I'm big on that, of people who are talented, but also kind, nice, go the extra step. I'm always big about that. You should always be anticipating your guests' needs. So instead of waiting for someone to ask for a drink, you see that it's almost done. You sneak over. You know what your hosts are. I always know what my hosts are drinking. And when I see that they're almost done with that glass of Chardonnay, you walk up, they're about to put it down. You grab that glass discreetly and you hand it to them, and they don't know it even better. And then at the end of that, people are like, your team, Troy, your Simply Troy team was so anticipating people's needs. And handling things. And I say this all the time. Simply Troy is not just me. It is way bigger than me. Simply Troy is so many different people who participate and work on my team, because I can't do what I do just by myself. And I respect everybody, and I give them some creative leeway,
But I imagine you must also sit down with them and talk to them about all of this that you're bringing up right now to me.
Always.
Right?
We always talk about it. And
page.
they also they learn from my example.
Okay, so so when they come, they now know.
They know. People know, that's how Troy's going to do this, or that's how you handle it, or, hey, you guys, make sure that's handled, or take care of things. And again, because I am the owner and stuff like that, doesn't mean I can't get my hands dirty. I mean, first time in my career, I did this just at that. So I had to be an Uber driver and drive one of the guests home. It's a weird situation, but I was like, you know what? Jump in. I'm going to take you home right now. You need to, I'm not letting you drive. Here you go. But that's what I do. I think about things. I think about the people. When any event I do, I think anywhere from the 5-year-old to the 95-year-old, because every single person should be thought of, not just the guest of honor, not just when we were doing the stuff for Carol Burnett, it was everybody and a part of that cast I was thinking of, the people who had grown up with her, who had the nostalgia, as to the younger generation who idolizes this icon and what they loved about it. I had 3 weeks to pull that event together. I got hired and I had 3 weeks. Wow. And it was crazy fast time, but I had to pull it off. I did. The week before, I think it was maybe 5 business days before, a highly elegant event, putting it all together. And her manager called me and asked if I could incorporate chili into the event. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Chili? And then he proceeded to tell me the story, at which point I was like, I will move heaven and earth to make this happen. And so I did, because we found out that during the show, at the taping, every week after the end of the show, Miss Burnett and her husband would take the guest host of the week to Chasen's. Chasen's was the place to go. It was like the hot thing. But Chasen's Chili was the thing in town.
Wow, who would know?
Rumored is that, Elizabeth Taylor had Chasen's Chili flown to Rome when she was filming Cleopatra. So this is a huge deal. Yeah. They had a very specific look with the green and white awnings to their place, and the chili was very famous. So in the span of those 5 work days, I was able to get my fabricator. We went online. We found old photos. We recreated a tabletop for the station that had the original Chasen's logo and everything. Made by Meg Catering, was able to track down the original recipe and find out where it was. And she bought all the chili, made a beautiful chili station. Yeah. I tracked down the beautiful the beautiful cups and everything that it was going to go in. And then as a great takeaway, my graphic designer, Kate Causey, who's amazing, Kate and I tracked down the original recipe online, and we found the original recipe cards, and we had recipe cards created.
Come on,
and that was
Troy.
a beautiful takeaway at that
great.
station.
Wow.
And so every guest came. So when people came in that night, people learned the story who maybe didn't know that, or the people who came in, and I still get goosebumps as I'm telling you this, when I would see some of the older generation come in and see the Chasen station, and their breath was taken away. They flipped out. They're like, I can't believe you're taking me back to this. They would tell the stories. And when I got to walk Miss Burnett around, and I walked into that room, and literally she stopped in her tracks and was like, I can't believe this. And she picked up because she didn't know any of the planning. That was when she showed up that night after taping that retrospective. She didn't know nothing.
Oh my God.
So all the details, every single thing that I ever imagined or wanted, and they approved and said I could do, and to make it happen. That was a once in a lifetime event that will never ever happen again.
And she's such an icon. I mean, when I was really little, I'd watch the Carol Burnett show.
Everybody,
hilarious.
She is to this day one of the top comedy icons in our lives.
I would say so for sure.
And it's so it was great. It's those moments I love being an event designer, because I think about things. I'm a thoughtful and tasteful designer. That is what I do. I love thinking about the details. I think it takes anybody can throw money at an event to make an event, but when you really personalize and you think about the people, and they don't have to be VIP super celebrity. I have people who you will never know who they are, but I think about them. I think about what's special to them and their family, because this is a milestone for whatever that may be, or what charity event, how it's going to be helpful for their donors, how we make something special. People go to a lot of these, but you are trying to earn money every year for a charity, and you need to mix it up. You need to keep people coming back to an event, but keeping it feeling fresh.
Right.
That's the fun thing that I get to do every year.
So what is this online entrepreneurial and leadership book club?
Talk about starting authentically. So it just began. So January 2018, I randomly wrote to a huge group of entrepreneur leadership friends, smart friends of mine on Facebook, asking them about a sponsorship service that I saw on Facebook. I was like, hey, did anyone done this? It's really cool, leadership books and stuff like that. And everyone was like, no. They're like, we should just start a book club. So two of the people, Melissa Hagan and Philip, a photographer friend, and then some other people chimed in. They're like, you should lead it, Troy. We would follow you. And in the span of those moments, all of a sudden, Simply Smart Book Club began. And within 2 hours, Kate Causey had created a logo. All of a sudden, I was like, you know what? This is what the community I want to build as an extension of my brand. Because there are people I know who are small business owners, big business owners, people who used to be in the finance world who are now maybe stay-at-home moms who are looking for something different. I wanted to build a community where you like a book club, but sometimes it feels super heavy and you're like, I can't stay on top of it. But by doing this, people sign up through the newsletter. So simplysmartbookclub.com. They sign up for a newsletter. We do the check-ins each week, just trying to be motivating, empowering. We pick a book. We started with Your Best Year Ever by Michael Hyatt right now, which is exciting. It's a lot about goal setting this year and really starting everyone, I think, on the right note. And each month Simply Troy will curate a book or thing that I feel like is that moment. February's coming up, so I know that I wanted to pick something kind of that revolved around passion. Valentine's Day is that month, so I know what the next book is. That's going to be, I'm going to announce it next week, actually. And the key is then they're invited into a private Facebook group discussion.
Oh, that's how it is. Okay.
And so people get to, as you're reading, we're not reading murder mysteries here. We're not spoilers. So some people, I know people who've already finished the book. I haven't finished the book yet. Other people have. And you start commenting online. There's a great story that Michael had at the beginning of this. And Sam Jacobson, one of our people, found the video of this race happening, of this woman falling, jumping back up and winning the race. And I tell you, like, this is how I like having a community build. And all of a sudden, in the span of 3 weeks, we've already like over 100 people, and it's neat. Building from there.
Yeah.
And people are going to continue growing. And my goal is to do that, but to keep people entertained. You can put stuff on there, and you know what? our lives get busy. You have lots of work. Sometimes you have family obligations. But when you can sit down and you can go through people's comments or what they're thinking, or I have an aha moment, boom, here you go. Or, hey, I took that assessment. This is what I'm at. I don't know. What did you guys feel about that? Maybe I didn't like this book. Why didn't you like the book? And everyone can start chiming in and talking, and they can do it and they don't feel stressed. And then I want to surprise people with different things, with authors, or maybe a quick message from somebody, or one-on-ones. Maybe I'll get to do Facebook Lives with people. I want to keep them feeling energized and empowered throughout the year, whatever that may be, personally, family, professional.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So with your event and design business, it's been 4.5 years since you've gone out on your own.
Yes.
What would you like to see happen in the next, let's say, 5 years?
In 5 years, I will keep doing events. The lifestyle part of my brand is where I really want to keep moving forward. There are things that I want to be doing. I want, greeting cards and stationery. I want to move into that. I would love an organizational system at the Container Store someday. These are things that I like to do. Doing a linen collection with some rentals, things that I like based on that. Products. I love all that kind of stuff with the lifestyle segment. I love designing stuff for holidays when I, get to be on national television and talk on lifestyle segments. I like showing other people, like, here's what you can do. I get to play at a very high level with people, but just because I do that doesn't mean you can't do that somewhere in Iowa with being specific and thoughtful of how you can learn from something like this and take it into your own home, no matter where you live. That's important to me, that people don't write something off just because they think, oh, I can't do that. That's just Hollywood. No, it's not. There's things that you can do very easily. I mean, we've all seen, writing on mirrors. I've been doing that for a long time. I did it at Fergie's baby shower, writing on mirrors and stuff. People put menus on mirrors. People love all that. Yeah. Anybody can do that. You can do that yourself if you know how to do calligraphy, or you go to the local art school in your town. You find out who the art students are, and you give them that shot, and they'll do something brilliant for you. It doesn't always have to be, super A-list. I can't afford that. You think about it. I'm not someone who says, I'm not going to sit around for anything to ever be handed to me. As I've talked about before, I am very much like, how do I figure this out? Let's do it. Okay. I don't know how to do that. I'm going to learn, or I'll figure it out by calling. And what's the worst someone's going to say? No. Great. Learn it, people. Rejection's a part of life. So learn how to handle a no and keep running with it. Man, I love what you're talking about. The aspect of assuming you'll be able to figure it out. I just do. Yeah. Like it's, but that's what it takes. It does. You know what I mean? End of story. You have to just believe that. And then I believe it'll happen. Not that it just happens magically, but it kind of marinates in the subconscious, and then you figure it out. Let me stress, you will make mistakes. Yeah. And you know what? Be smart enough to own it and learn from them. And, you'll make a blunder, or, that maybe didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. But you'll learn from it, and someone can't fault you. If you're trying your best and you're like really giving it all, I think when you're faulted, and you should take the blame, is when you've, kind of only done something half-ass, and you know that you're like, I didn't give that my all, or maybe it just kind of slipped, and you're like, okay, I didn't do that right. Yeah. But I always say you keep learning, because that's how, through some of these failures or missteps, someday you hit that big success. And trust me, the big successes don't just happen every night. So you appreciate it when they do. Well, how can people learn more about you, get in touch with you? What are the best ways to find you? My website, simplytroy.com, is very simple. And also now the simplysmartbookclub.com. Those are easy. You can also find me on Instagram at simplytroy, Twitter at simplytroy. Great. Pinterest, I do some stuff on, also at simplytroy. We'll have this in the show notes too on the website. So, wonderful. But the energy you bring, it's infectious. I mean, I love that. Really, yeah, it's great. So, Troy, thanks so much for talking with me. I appreciate it. My sincere pleasure. Thank you for coming into my home and to allowing me to be here with your audience. Sure.
This has been The Wedding Biz with Andy Kushner. You can find us at theweddingbiz.com and on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Wedding Biz Show. I gave you my heart. If you want to support the show, we'd be grateful if you shared it with colleagues, friends, and family. We'd also appreciate your review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening. It'll never shatter, no matter